Okay, let's make sure we're recording. Yep, okay. So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tony Bedella, and I'll be going through live proctoring with you guys. If I can get this to play nice with me. There we go. I am currently a TOSA over in the Clovis East area. I used to work, prior to the previous 2 years, I used to work for Illuminate for 5 years. So I've got a pretty good knowledge base with the program, and I'm really happy to show you kind of one of the tools that I feel during distance learning could be very beneficial to us as classroom teachers as we try to navigate through that digital classroom and trying to get kids online to learn. So it comes across as an assessment tool, but you can use it as a formative assignment tool as well. If you didn't already write down the bit.ly link for this presentation, go ahead and write it down now, or take a picture, or get it up on your screen on the side. I might refer to it, but for the most part, I'm just going to dive into the system and show you guys some of what it looks like from the teacher side of it and from the student side of it, so you can see what's taking place in here. There are a ton of links within this presentation to Illuminate help docs and things like that that you can refer back to. So if I go too fast, which could easily happen, we've only got about an hour, and there's more than just more than just live proctoring that I want to show you guys today. A few other things that some of you may or may not know about, and so I'm going to go not too fast, but fast enough that you probably want to go back to that presentation and review some of those things that I said. So if you haven't already done so, I know Sherry was checking in on some things, by the way. Sherry is my wingman today, or wing gal. She'll be checking chat and stopping me if I get going too fast, or if some important questions pop up. So Sherry, thank you so much for helping me out today.
My pleasure.
And so just a few other things here. Sherry put these nice little slides together to make sure you change your name. And here's a walkthrough on how to do it. I'm sure this is the last of the day, so you've probably done this like 3 times already. So, I'm just going to continue to move forward. If you need me to go back, just put it in chat and I'll come back to it. And then, hey, grab a snack, mute yourself unless you have a question. If you are experiencing issues, turn off your video and put your questions in the chat, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so what is live proctoring? Live proctoring was based around a guy named Robert at Illuminate. He was listening to us always talking about digital whiteboards, or whiteboards, and it's a tool that we've all used as a teacher to feedback from our students. And so what we wanted to do was create a tool, and it's been done in Nearpod or Pear Deck. It's very similar to this, but in essence, a digital whiteboard that leverages what Illuminate has in it with, flexible assessments, item bank assessments, all the state-aligned items that our kids are going to be exposed to, and things like that. So it's a very robust item bank, and we wanted to connect that to teachers in a formative way. And so basically the idea is taking what you see here and then putting it into students' hands from a device, which works out pretty good in distance learning right now, because that's kind of what we're expecting him to do everything on. And so it's a way for students to kind of give some feedback to us as we ask them questions, or as we're monitoring them in an assessment. And that's kind of one of the big things that everybody's wanting to use live proctoring for is, hey, is this a tool that I can monitor my students while they're taking an assessment because I'm worried about cheating? You definitely can use this for that. But let's face it, they're going to have multiple screens at home. They're going to have their phone. They're going to have all these things. If they want to cheat, they're going to cheat. And so my advice would be, maybe not test heavily all the time, and save those big tests for once in a while, and then you can use this for that. But this is a tool that can really help you with your everyday teaching. Now, this is some kids and just the excitement that they have when we would run this training with students in classrooms. And so here we go. So some things, you can just read through this real quick, but the biggest thing that we saw were, and if you've used Nearpod or you use Pear Deck, you kind of know that kids get pretty excited when they can, get their stuff out there and then it shows up on the board, or they're using technology with their learning. I know we used a lot of Nearpod last year, and the kids were just super excited to use it all the time in the East area. So this is very similar to that, with just the ability to really connect it to state aligned style questions if that's how you want to approach them more as well. Great opportunities for checks for understanding and things like that. Yeah, I mean, you can come back and look at this, but these are some of the things that we saw the most. I don't want to spend too much time here because I want to keep things moving. So here are some other connections, and you can kind of come back and look at this. I'm just going to smash right through this, but basically this just kind of paints a picture of, we have our curriculum. Sometimes it's got good online components, sometimes it doesn't. We can use flexible to kind of bridge the gap between our curriculum and our kids as far as in a digital format. And then we can use live proctoring to kind of see where they're at, in hopes of maybe at the end, even though, you know, state test is not a thing we want to necessarily focus in on, but we do, there's a way to connect them to some of that and kill multiple birds, curriculum and you know, getting exposed to the state style questions all at the same time. So this is just a few things. You can come back and look, but live proctoring allows teachers to guide kids through some of those high stakes style questions, and then you'll see that here in a moment. And then this is just a little bit more of that. Sorry, let me go through that. So how does live proctoring help me teach my students while it's happening? Well, let me show you. Okay, so from here, it has a bunch of things that it goes through, things like that. But first, I'm just going to kind of dive into, you know, what this looks like, and just let your mind naturally start to think of where this could lead. But the biggest thing that I think drives me when we first, you know, learned about this and helped develop it was, the biggest challenge I always had as a teacher was, I ask a question, how many kids get to answer typically in a normal classroom setting? I know things are different now. Yeah, Matt's holding up a number 1, right? One kid gets to answer, and that kid like me who blurts everything out no matter what the teacher tries to do, right? So you got 2, you know, and so the rest of the kids, maybe they're scared to get involved, or they just don't have that form or a voice. And this is an attempt to really give kids an opportunity to contribute in class and for you to kind of see what's happening. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to dive into it here a little bit. Now you'll have to bear with me. I'm managing 3 computers right now, so I can show you some fake kids that are going to be doing this. So let me just move some things around here. And one of the first things I also wanted to go over was, you know, how to give an assessment online. And so I've got some questions that I just want to ask here real quick, so I can kind of get an idea of where we're at. So I've got a poll that should be launching for you guys right now. And if you would just fill that out. And the 2 questions are you proficient giving an Illuminate assessment online? Not creating, just administering, because it's 2 different beasts. And then the second question is, have you ever administered an assessment in Illuminate using a quick code? All right, so as we're going through this, for question number 1, I see we're split pretty much across the board on easy peasy, so-so, and nope as far as administering an online assessment. So if you're in the nope department or so-so, hopefully you'll get a better understanding of how to do that today. And then if you're in for question 2, here I can actually end it. You guys can see that. Can you see that now? All right, sweet. So you can see how on question number 2, we're highly in the no, right? So most of you didn't even know that quick code was available. And what quick code is, and why quick code is going to be important during this time, is most of you are going to be using Google Classroom. Well, with quick code, what it does is it creates a link that you could put into your Google Classroom, and then it will automatically have the code in it where they need to go to test, and then all they have to put in is their user ID. Like for me, it would be Tony Badella 001. So they type that part in, the rest is already done, boom, they can get in and start taking the test. And for you as a teacher, it's very, very easy to set that up. So I'm going to show you guys that here in just a moment. All right, so let me get out of here for a minute. There we go. So one of the other things that I'll go over later today too is tiles. Now you can see on my handy dandy demo site here in Illuminate, I've got all these tiles in here and they're all different colors and things like that. You can make your own tiles in Illuminate as well. That's another one of the little tricks that I wanted to give you today. So where you can really get Illuminate organized. I know this past year, the district got in there and they made all of those tiles that linked to our block assessments, our benchmark assessments, all that, and made like we got hardly any calls on, hey, where are those assessments at this year? Where in the past, how many of you struggled to find your benchmark assessment, right? So this was one of the things that I brought with me. I was like, hey, let's do this. And what's really cool about this is if I come down here to my CUSD tile, I can just click on this, and basically I've created a search in the system that I say, hey, I want you to run a search that has all of my CUSD assignments in it or assessments in it. And bam, it'll run all those. And now I can find that very, very quickly. So one of the biggest advices I'll give you, no matter what platform you're using, is if you're creating assignments or you're creating assessments digitally and you're sharing them with your departments or your colleagues, make sure you guys develop a common naming convention. Okay. And what I mean by that is, like in this one, I've got CUSD in every single one of these, so I can key in on that as a search criteria to make what I'm looking for in Illuminate really, really easy. When I was teaching up at Sierra, I used the word exit tickets, and I just put the word exit in every one of those exit tickets. That way I could find those really, really quick, and then I had whatever it was after. At least I could pare down into what it is I was looking for. Because once that's done, now you can go a lot faster. And if you're a high school teacher, that's what we're always trying to do, is go super fast, because we got to get them in and get them out before we lose them, right? And elementary, they're a little bit more resilient. High school, man, it's not as much. That's at least what I always found. But anyway, so I'll go back. I'll show you guys some help docs that I've included on the slide deck that you guys could find on how to create your own tiles and things like that. But basically, what I want to do now is I want to click on my pre-built assessment that I have here. So I'm just going to click on the CUSD live proctoring. And live proctoring is super easy to set up. There's no magic extra buttons you have to do. All you need to be able to do to make live proctoring work is make an assessment roster. Okay, and we saw that. A third of us already know how to do that, so you're good to go. So if you were in that bottom 2/3 where you're so-so, or you're like, I really don't know, then watch right now, because I'm just going to go over it. So when I click into an assessment, this box here pops up, and I can see a bunch of options here. And the one I'm looking for, which makes sense, is I want to give this test online. We're not in school right now, so I want to be able to give this one online. So I can just come down here and I can click online. Okay, and so I click online. And now it's going to take me to where I can start to, build my assessment roster. And so right now you see I have one already in here. Okay, but from here, basically what you're having to do is you don't have to ever enter kids or anything like that. Illuminate connects directly with Zangle, and we pull our kids in every single night. So if you get a new student today, they wouldn't be in there, but tomorrow they would. And you don't have to go and re-add them. If you've already got an assessment roster going, it will automatically lump them in there. So here's the quick code way of creating an assessment. It's super easy. Make sure you're watching or you'll miss it. All I have to do is come up here and click this rocket ship where it says test with quick code. And you'll see now that it says it's saving and all that other fun stuff. And bam, that's it. They're ready to take a test online. All I have to do now is get them the code. So I could come over here, and I'm going to use the one that actually has 3 students logged into it already. But I can come in here and I can just click this code. And here's where I was talking about for Google Classroom. If I click this, now this box pops up. It's very similar to Desmos. I believe that Nearpod has something like, a lot of the tech companies are doing this now. But basically that link right there, I could copy this link, drop it into my Google Classroom, and bam, they could get right in here. And all they have to do is put in their test. And I'll show you what that looks like here right now. Okay.
Tony, there's someone that has a quick question for you. They're asking,
sure.
Can you manually add students to your assessment roster? I'm an RSP teacher and I don't have a roster through Q.
Okay, so great question. So if you don't already have it, there's a permission that should be assigned to your account in Illuminate that says you have the ability to roster students, view students, not roster to you, and then you would be able to make rosters and things like that. Sherry, get her name down for me, and then we can check her account and see if she's got that ability. It's usually that's already embedded in the permission level that you have in Illuminate. You should be one above teacher, and that allows you to do all this. But then, yes, you would be able to add those kids in. You would just go to what's called the scope selector and start entering the kids you want to test, and they should all come up for you. You would just go about doing it a different way, or you could just do this, give them the code, and then this bypasses all rosters, everything. Basically, all you have to do is get your kids online, give them this code, and they would be able to get in there and take your test, and then you would be able to see them as they're taking the test. So this is actually this works better for you than anything else, because you don't have to really worry about it. As long as kids could, get to this spot where it's illuminate.online, they put in the code. I'll show you where it's at in Clever as well. They can get in here and take a test.
Okay, and one more question.
Sure.
What does the post to Google Classroom button do? Will that link an assessment?
So this is not something that Clovis Unified has gotten set up yet. But yes, it does do that. This is a demo site it's a Illuminate's demo site, and this is an option that they have. We just haven't done it yet. When I was working for them, it was kind of a rough integration, and I don't know how much better it's gotten. And it's one of those things where when Google kind of changes some of their API stuff, we have to be monitoring that and change it too. So yeah, it's something that I can talk with the district about setting up, and we can look into that. But right now we don't have it. So
and Tony.
Yeah.
I think we're already using that secondary login to make it sync with Q. So I don't know if we will have that option even available to us, because we're already taking up that second slot with Illuminate with
Gotcha.
a login to Q. So I'm not sure if we'll ever get it.
Okay. So that's just where that's at. But you could take this link, like I said, you can copy it right into Google Classroom in your assignment, and then bam, kids could get here. And then basically what that looks like is, let me minus this down here. Oops, I don't want to do that. Let me go back up here. That way we can see. I'm going to shrink this window down a little bit. So now I could come over here and I can open up a new one, and I could put this in there. Oh. Did I not copy it? I think that's the problem. There we go. And basically what this does is now it takes them to illuminate.online, and it already has that code in there. And then all the student would have to do would be to type in their ID number. So they would come in here, they would start to put in their ID. And excuse my zooming in on the camera as I try to type and see these little numbers that I have here. And then hit that, and then it's going to show their name. So I've got Horace Slughorn from good old Harry Potter. Hit confirm, and now it's going to take them into where they can start to take this test. Okay, and this is where the magic starts to happen on this. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log in my other two students real quick, and then I'll start to show you guys some things here. So give me 1 second. While that's loading, live proctoring does work with flexible assessments as well, but it does lose one component, which I'll talk about that as well.
And real quick, Tony, there's another question.
Sure.
If I have assessments loaded into Illuminate in the past, can you upload them to do an online assessment using a quick code?
Yes, it's available to any online assessment that you have, or as long as it's not like a paper pencil test that you haven't converted to an online test yet. But yeah, any of them will work. And it's always the same. It's always the same route. There's no changes or anything like that. It'll always be the same type of deal where on how it works. So you don't have to worry about it being different from one test to the next. So I'm just gonna kind of restructure some things here. So you can see that this student is in the test, and basically right here where it says live proctoring, if I click that, that's it. That's what launches live proctoring for me. And now I have this available to me, and I'm able to use all of the features that this has. And so now you can see my 3 students that are logged in here. You can see what it looks like on the student end. And so some cool things that you can do here, and this is where you can really use this as a teacher in real time, is let's say I'm teaching, right? I'm going through my lesson and I want to get to that point where I want to stop and I want to ask a kid a question. But if I just open this test up to them, they're just going to get in there and they're going to start to go 100 miles an hour and start going through every test question. Well, what I can do here is I can come up, and now as a teacher, there's this pause button right here, and I can just hit pause, and I can hit confirm. And now what it does here is now it paused all 3 of my students. And so they have no access to this test anymore. And on the left here, it's showing me that those students are paused because that little bar underneath is yellow. Okay, so I can pause the kids out of the students, so I can kind of control when we're working and when we're not working. And so now I can come in here and I can click questions. So right now I'm in the student view and I can see my 3 students. I'm going to go to questions now. And what's cool here is I have some options here in this menu where if I click this, I've got some choices here, and I'm going to put reveal mode in real quick. And then I'm also going to change this to what we call pacing mode. And what's cool about this is I can come in here now, and if I turn pacing mode on, what I can do now is I can come over here and I can, where question number 1 is I can say, you know what, we're going to skip question 1 for now. I want us to go to question number 2, and I'm going to click the little menu on the left there, and now I hit set for pacing, and now it's going to kick every one of my kiddos into question number 2, and I'm going to resume the test. And now it's just put all 3 of my students on question number 2. And so from here, now I would give them the opportunity to do it. And as they're filling things in, like let's say Ron chooses C and Pops chooses D, and then Mr. Slughorn chooses A, or he's going to choose C as well. I don't even know what the right answer is in this case. You see that that is now starting to change, and you could have this up on the screen as you're sharing it with kids, or you can hide this, things like that. But with that reveal mode on, now I'm hiding the answers. I could click that I again, and now it shows all the answers. And so now you can kind of see, oh my gosh, we missed this completely. I don't know what the problem is. You know, you can go back, reteach. You could pause the test here too, and now the kids wouldn't be able to go in and change their answer, but you could still have what they put in there as a way to just get in there and reteach. So if you figure, you know, you've got 40 kiddos in there, and let's say all of them are starting to choose C, or you're just collecting this data that's all in red, that the kids aren't doing that well. You know, let me find the right answer here, because they can change it while it's going, so it's got to be B here. But let's say you're seeing a lot of B, but then C is coming up a lot. Well, now you know that distractor to go back in and have that conversation with them. And so you just have a lot of power here to really kind of make multiple choice more than just regular old multiple choice. And so just some really neat kind of stuff. Let's see if this is going to work for me, but you can also come in here and you can view question details. So sometimes it takes a moment for it to load up. Let me see if I can get the answer distribution to work. So you can also kind of get this quick graph as well to say, all right, hey, what answer are we really choosing out of the most? Things like that. So let me see if I can get back to this question details. There it is. So now you also have the ability to see the question as well. So even though you can't see the question, now you can come in here, and now you also have a rationale. So if this was a math problem, you know, this is how I use it all the time, was these rationales would be in there, and my students could clearly see, oh my gosh, okay, that's exactly what I did wrong, Mr. Bedella. And now you're not having to put out all these fires all over the place. You can share that data with the kids right away. And so live proctoring currently works in the old item bank with multiple choice, multiple select, and constructed response. There's a new item bank out that just came out in July, or late June, early July. And it currently does not support proctoring. They're rebuilding it, but they're supposed to be ready by the end of August, early September, and then to support every item type that we have, or that they have. And so by then, man, you really get some good stuff, like where whatever they type in, you'll be able to see it, it'll grade it. You know, they'll be doing graphing, drag and drop, like all these different item types that our kids are being exposed to, that'll be there by the end of the month, early September. But right now, it currently works multiple choice, multiple select, and constructed response. And sometimes some explicit constructed response will work. Any questions so far, Sherry?
Yeah, right now they're just asking about that screen that you're showing with the answers. And I'm just emailing back, just don't share that. You can watch it and just not have it projected through Zoom where they can see it.
Yes.
I was answering back, Kristen, she was asking, what about a split screen? Well, even a split screen, if you choose in Zoom to show, you know, your screen 1, even a split screen, you're going to see it. So my suggestion is have a second, have a second screen, or you're plugged into your projector, into your Extron system, and you can see it on your big screen in your classroom. Or like what most of us do, we have another computer next to us, and we log in to Illuminate there and watch the proctoring while we're interacting with our students through Zoom. So there's lots of ways to get there where it doesn't show the students your answers, right?
You can also in Zoom tell it not to share your entire screen, and you can go, there's a bunch of options, and if you only say to show this one screen and then you have a separate browser open, you could toggle between the browser you're allowing to see and the browser that's separate altogether from the kids. And it's just a matter of, you could be behind the scenes looking at it, and then you could be, they wouldn't know the difference. Or just stop share for that moment while you're reviewing the data, and then when you're ready to share the data again, you just pop it back up, do the big reveal. Oh, and one of the big things is, I forgot to say this, is like, oh my gosh, all the kids' names are up there, right? Well, right up here where it says view by, you can come in here and you can just go by ID, or you can go by anonymous, and every time it moves forward, the kids go in a different order. So it's not like, oh, hey, Bedell is my last name, I'm in the upper left-hand corner every single time. Nope, it moves all over the place. And so it's pretty powerful stuff in that way. A couple other things moving across the top. More than likely, you're going to get kids that forget what the password is or whatever. You can always click right there, and this window pops back up for them to get back in. Super easy, super clean to use. Yeah, I mean, this is what this does. And now we can go over here, and we're going to go to question number 3. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm still in pacing mode, but now I want to set pacing mode for question number 3, just so you guys can see what this one looks like. And so now you'll see on my right side that it automatically pushed kids into this. And so this is an evidence-based selected response question. It's 2 answer choices. So, I can see then that, these are the 2 answers for this one, and you'll see that they're both being put in there. Now, ahead of time, notice that the first time I did it, it was AD, and it was still red, because the way these work is it's based off the state test, and the state tests in these situations are all or nothing. And so that is the way that Illuminate builds a lot of these items, is all or nothing. So if it's going in, I would have that knowledge in my head, so you can be looking at this to be going, okay, we're all getting D, but something about A or C or whichever one is throwing the students off. All right. And so, if you want the kids to just go through, if you want to use this as a monitoring device to just kind of see, what are kids doing in the moment on each question. Remember, you do not have to have it in pacing mode. You could just come up here, click the green pacing mode again, and that will turn it off. And then basically kids could be moving through this. And if you come to live dashboard, you can see, by kid, so I'm going to move around here a little bit, and you can see, hey, what answers are these kiddos putting in when? So, if you're worried about cheating and you see the same couple kids putting in answers at the same time, then, you'll have vision on that. So it can be used as a monitoring tool. It's just one of those things where you just got to learn how to work it and whatnot, and just get used to the way this works. But as you can see, it's pretty responsive, that as kids are filling stuff in, it is making adjustments along the way. So let me just fill this out a little bit so you can kind of see, how this is working. There we go. And let me do this last one here. And just so you guys know, if you're not already using Illuminate to expose kids testing questions, these multiple select style questions are 30% of the state test for math and about 20% for ELA, and kids are missing 60% of those. So the more we expose our students to these multiple select style questions from grades 3 and up, the better off they're going to be at just getting used to this. And think about some of the discussions you can have around these with getting this data. If you see a kid only put 1 in, now ahead of the game, you could go up to that student and be like, hey, let me get some names so I know which kid it is. But hey, Horace, you only put 1 in there and it's supposed to be 2. And so there's just a lot of really nice things that this does. Now there's 2 more things that I want to show you, and notice how question number 6 is grayed out. Okay, so if I go back to questions now and I go to question number 6, and I'm going to set that for pacing and force all the kiddos there, so that way I don't have to navigate all of this. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to set this for pacing. So as you can see now, this one here on the right is a constructed response question. And so in here, now you can see that as you're typing that in, this should respond to that pretty quick as it saves the answer, and now you see that as well. So even in that written aspect, you can really start to see, what kids are doing on an essay or a math problem or a performance task. You could do this with that. I mean, a lot of different things. Now, the only thing is with these ones right here, everything else has been auto graded. These questions are not auto graded. You would have to go back in there and grade them yourself. Okay, and you do that in the enter edit area, which most of us should be familiar with all the online assessments that we give and Illuminate and things like that. But constructed response is really, really awesome. This is one of my favorite things to do because for ELA, we're always trying to gather that feedback from our students. And this is a great place to get it. And then you can also see certain things like this, where if a student was to put something in there, you can also reach out to them because that, he is my hero. But you could head them off at the pass and kind of see some of these things ahead of time. And then if you wanted to kind of go over this with kids and you wanted to zoom in on this to say, hey, let's talk about what makes this so great, or let's talk about what we need to do to make this a little bit better. Remember, right now it's got their name on there. You could always come up, hit anonymous, and then you could pop this up there, and now you could get in there and have some of these discussions about writing as well. So it's just a place to really get a lot of data in a hurry. You've seen me do this. There's nothing really hard about it. Mostly it's just getting in there and playing around with it a little bit and just getting some of those clicks and things like that. If you have you'll have to get in there once school starts to really kind of play around with it. You can zoom in on this a little bit right here. I'll just go over that real quick to make that a little bit bigger. But basically that is live proctoring in a nutshell. I mean, you can see students' responses right away. You can use it with multiple select, with regular multiple choice, and with constructed response. And a little bit further down the road, it will work with everything. So,
Hey, there's a couple questions.
Sure.
Okay. So one is, if a student is kicked out of the test because of an unstable internet connection or other reason, will their progress be saved?
Yes.
Will their short answer response be saved?
Yeah, so it usually will auto, it's usually pretty good. As soon as they stop typing, it starts to try to auto save right then and there. If they do get kicked, all they have to do, you'd have to put up the quick code again for them when they came back or whatever, and then just get them back in. And every question that they've gotten through to that point would be saved. It just depends on how much or how bad it was when they got kicked off. If they were in the middle of a pause, it might save it. I'm going to err on the side that it would save it most of the time. It's pretty good about that kind of stuff.
There's always one-offs. We had a couple of them in summer school.
Yeah.
And if they do get kicked out, completely closed down, we found if you completely close out and then go back, it's easier. I guess a couple students thought they were still connected, like it dropped, but it faked them out like they were still connected to the test. And they never, I guess, got the button to submit at the end. And of course, it wasn't saved, but they thought they were done.
Gotcha. So on the finished portion of it, they never got to that spot.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then one other question is it possible to scramble the questions for multiple versions?
Okay, so great question. There is the ability when you go and create your online testing roster, and I'll go into that, and I can go into that right now. So let me just walk you through. So if you're done, you want to exit it out, all you've got to do is come in here and hit exit, and that'll take you back to your testing windows, okay? And so let me stretch this back out real quick. Okay, so if you need to kind of test things out or randomize questions, in the new item bank, you can randomize questions to where number 1 for me may be number 5 for Sherry. But that's only in the new item bank, and that currently does not work with live proctoring. So pretty soon those are all melded together, and then it'll work completely there. In old item bank tests, so legacy item bank is what they're calling it right now, you do not have the ability to move questions around, but you do have the ability to randomize answer choice. So like my answer could be A for number 1, where Sherry's is C for number 1. However, when you're looking at it in live proctoring, it just kind of messes with the way the data comes across, because I'm going to have green for A, Sherry's also going to have green for C, but then another student may have A and it's red, because they really had C as the correct answer. So it's hard to navigate the data in that case. So I wouldn't use live proctoring necessarily in that moment if you're going to randomize question order, because it just gets a little bit sloppy, and it does give you a red message in that instance as well. And I'll show you guys what that looks like. So if you want to do that, basically over here in your roster is an edit button, and this is the same whether you're building your test in Portal or you're building your test with QuickCode. But in the edit button, you click that, and I'll just go over a few of the important settings that you have. So you can see here, this is your code. This is your testing window. It always defaults to a week. So you can be out in front of things, or you can just launch it right then and there, and it'll go 7 days from when you launch it. Under the administration settings is where all of the magic happens. So you can come in here, you hit show. And now what's cool about this is what I used to like to do is I'd create, if I have 3 different preps of Math 1, I'd create 3 different codes and then go back into each quick code, hit edit, and give it a daily window and said, okay, for period 1, I'm going to have those guys from 8:30 to 9:30. And now this code, once I save it, will only work for that set of kids from 8:30 to 9:30. Only that group can get in there. And then I would do it again for my next group of kids that was 9:30 to 10:30. And so I'm making these different codes. All the data is still in the same spot, but it does allow me to have just a little bit more control on when kids can actually get in and take the test. But a little bit further down, also you can put a time duration. I know people have asked me about that. Like, we don't want them to be able to phone a friend and have like 3 hours on a 5-question assessment. You can put a time limit on there so where once they start, it's running down. Okay. Student pauses, I don't even mess with that. If they X out, it automatically pauses it, except for with the time limit. But right here, lock browser does not work from home, guys. Sorry. Once we're back in normal things, we can do it from school. We do have lock browser available. But this last choice right here is if I click that and now I do randomized choice order, that will allow me to, like I said, have A be for one and C be for another, but it does kind of mess with the data a little bit in the way it comes across in live proctoring. And then this is a bunch of extra tools, text-to-speech, things like that. I'll let you guys go back and look at that on one of the help documents that I have because of time. But that is where you would go in and do that. So let me save this, and then I'll show you guys where it's at again because I probably went too fast. So it's going to save that window now. And let me just show you how I did that. So I created it. I click test with QuickCode. And then once the roster is created, I just come in here to edit. And then down here in my administration settings, I come in here and I just click on randomized choice order. It works good for multiple choice, and it works some of the time for some of the multiple selects. It just depends on how many actual answers and how many choices the question has. So multiple select is a little bit more hit or miss. I hit save. And then now when I come in here to live proctoring, you'll see a little message that pops up here. And you see this that says randomize is on. And so as those choices come across, it just messes with that data a little bit to where it's not going to necessarily be clean anymore.
And then there's a quick question about would Illuminate lend itself to essay tests where students are writing 3 to 4 paragraphs? Also, is there an option to give specific feedback regarding the essay?
Okay, great question. So multiple rubrics, the answer is no. So if you wanted to do a traditional, EE for elaboration and what's the other one? Evidence and elaboration or writing concepts, and you wanted it all separate but under one question, it doesn't work that way. That's one of the things that we're trying to get built. But if you just have a 10-point rubric to where you could have your 2 4-points and then the writing convention is 2-point like the state, you could do it like that and just have to kind of, go 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 10 out of 10 and do it that way. But it does lend itself to kids writing an essay. The only thing is, let me get out of this here and I can show you kind of what that would look like. Let me go back to this one where the students are at. And so let me get to question number 6 here. Unhide that. And then I could come in here and let me show you the student. That's what we need to see. So let me move this a little bit here. Hey, come on. There we go. So if students are having to write here, You can also come in here and click this arrow, and now it goes to full screen, and students would have a full screen to type into. There's the indentation stuff, there's bold, there's italics, so it does have a lot of those writing tools. The only thing is where you would grade this is in a different spot. And then from there, you could leave feedback and things like that. Like if I go ahead and let me turn off pacing mode here. And then now I come back to this, and then I go through and I'm happy with that, and I go ahead and hit check mark to submit. And then now I've submitted my test. Hopefully it'll go fast enough, but I could come in now and I can see exactly what Horace did, and I can show you where that's at, and you can kind of see that tool real quick. So we have enough time. I should be able to get that in real fast. Any other questions on this part, Sherry, before I move out of here to show that next piece?
And then one other question, are students able to go back and change answer choices, particularly if a teacher is making multiple versions? This way students can't change choices. Okay, so there isn't a way to really make multiple versions in Illuminate. It's gonna only be one version in this. Flexible or the item bank does not support multiple versions. If you're going to use this in that formative sense to where you're showing the data over and over again, I would really leverage the pacing mode and that pause button, because the pacing mode locks a student out of a question, all right? And then the pause button locks them out of the question too. If not, they'll have the freedom to go back and change those answers, as they see moving across. So the other thing we always kind of talked about is if you're using this as a teaching tool, then don't really necessarily grade it in that way. But if you wanted to get it in as a grade, then I would really kind of leverage some of those pause modes or the set for pacing. Once they hit submit, they cannot go back in and adjust their test. So right now I've hit submit. There's no way I could go in here and change any of my answers. Another cool thing here before I leave is, let's say you're done teaching, and whether the kids finish or not, you want to force finish all of their assessments. In that menu bar, and this is a really important feature, in that menu bar, you'll see one here that's called Force Finish Assessment. This immediately shuts it down. So if you're done with your lesson for the day, you want to lock them out, this is like them hitting submit. It locks them all out of the assessment. All the data starts to compile and go into your donut of death. Okay. So did that answer the question okay? Yes, and I love the donut of death. I like that. There you go. Hopefully not too long. Pretty soon it'll be all greens and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to force finish this test. And now basically that submits all of my kiddos regardless of how they did or whatever. And now I can come in here and I can hit exit. So there is a new nifty tile that you should have on your tile page when you're in Illuminate. And let me show you here real quick. And let's see here. There it is. So this orange one called constructed response. And so notice there's a 1 right there. Well, hopefully it's already gone through and this is not another assessment. But if I click that, so I'm back in here, I want to go in and I want to look at those questions that the kids typed in on. If I click that, it's going to take me to a list of assessments, and here it is right here, and there you can see what Horace did on his assessment. And so notice it took me right to that. Now as I get more assessments in here, it'll give you a list of all your assessments that have constructed response stuff graded. So let's say that it's during that district benchmark time and you don't have time to get them all in, you can just go click that tile, find that benchmark you need, click on it, and it takes you right here to the student view of what they put in, where you can start to grade this. And so here's where you can leave some comments. You can come in here, and if you hover over it, a little box pops up and you can write something, or you can give them, let me shrink this down a little bit here so you can see the box. Oh, it's up high on me, but there's some green comments up here too. I don't know why it's doing that. I'll have to talk to the developers about fixing that. But you can write something here, or you can click, creative. And then down here at the bottom, you can also come in and say, I'm amazing. How could I bore you? Whatever you want to say. You come out here, type it all out. And then now you have those comments. And basically you set that up to where students could view it from their portal and they would be able to see all that. And then right here, I can come in here and I can grade that and I can put that in. Now, if I refresh this, hopefully it's had enough time that I'll get my other 2 students to pop in there. There we go. So now my other 2 kids are there. So now all I have to do is click down to the next one and give it a moment.
And there it is right there. And so you would see their essay here. And even over here on the right is a question info. You slide that out, you can see the question, and it even comes with the rubric for you. So you can see, hey, what's a 2, what's a 1, what's a 0. You can go in there and kind of at least have something to kind of bounce your rubric grade on. If you're building your own flexible assessment with a writing prompt, you would have to have that rubric with you, but it's essentially the same thing as far as the interface for the kids. And then I could just come in here and, I could put in my score, and I could go down to this one, and then it's going to load his up or hers up, and then now free feedback, and then I can go there and just remember you can hover over that, just get it to highlight. Come on, work with me. Maybe that's what the problem is. And then I can just hit unclear or whatever. Okay? So that's how you would go and do that. And just remember, after you've given one of these assessments, come into your tile page, and you should have an orange one that says constructed response. And notice how the number 1 is not there anymore because I've graded all of those constructed responses. And so now it's gone. Any other questions on the live proctoring?
No, not at this time. I don't see any new questions in there.
Okay. So a few other important things here. I talked to you guys about tiles and things like that. One of the other things that we have the ability to do, and this is another reason why I would encourage you to use Illuminate, is you can take any assessment that you give in Illuminate, and once it's scored, you have the ability to push that into your Q gradebook. And so on the presentation, let me get to that here. Let me scroll down to this here. Oh, real quick, let me just go to this one right here. So for our kiddos and Clever, if you're wanting to get the kids to log in, you're not using Google Classroom, but you do want them to get to a quick code or just the regular portal. In Clever, they have the 2 links there. The one there on the left takes you to this login screen. And then the one on the right will take them to, so this one here with the new flame will take them here. Okay, so depending on where they go, depending which one you give, that's where they're going to go. Now, I did go in and I did adjust our home connection portal to where now it's right here. If a kid goes to this one by accident and they're like, I don't see where to put the code in, there's a spot right here that says if your teacher gave you a quick code, click here. And if they click that, it will take them to this page right here. So even if they mess that up, they should be able to go and find the quick code spot. The only thing with this is now they're going to need that access code and their student ID. Okay? So in this presentation, if you missed some of that and you're like, oh my gosh, that was like drinking out of a fire hose, just know that there's some videos here for you guys that walk kind of through every little thing that I went over. So this is a really in-depth presentation that you could go back, share with maybe some of the folks that weren't here today. It'll walk them through how to do all this. Here's some additional tips for how to do this when we're back in the classroom or for virtual use. And then here's the bit on Q Gradebook. So there's a video right here that goes through how to do that. It's 30 minutes, but all you got to do is watch the first 8. And I'll add that to this just to watch the first 8. And then right next to it is a help doc, and it links right to this, and I can kind of show you guys what this process looks like. So basically, you go into your assessment once you've got it. First things first, make sure you've already built your assignment in Q Gradebook. So whatever it's going to be that you're going to push into, it needs somewhere to go. So go into Q Gradebook, make the assessment, make sure the points match. So if it's 10 points in Illuminate, make sure it's 10 points in your gradebook. Once you have that done, come back into Illuminate, give your assessment, run it like you normally would. And then under administration or under flexible, you'll see administration, push to Q Gradebook, or in flexible, you'll see administer and you'll see a push to Q Gradebook button. And then once you do that, it takes you here. It'll have your class right there labeled. So like my wife's name is hidden behind there because this is her class. And then in this drop down, it'll have a list of all your grade books. So if you're secondary, it's going to have a list of every single one of the classes that you teach. So make sure you build that assignment in every single one. So if it's third period, I already gave it. I just go in there, change the third period, and then look for that assignment in my Q Gradebook, make sure that's selected, make sure overall score is there, hit submit, bam, it's going to put in all the kids from just third period. Then for fourth period, I just come back in, do the same thing, and it'll put the right kids in the right spot. For elementary folks, if you give a reading test that has writing on it and you want the score to go in 2 different grade books, because sometimes we have a reading grade book, sometimes we have a writing grade book, then you can just come back in here and do the same thing. Put it once in your reading grade book, and then make sure you have the assignment in your writing grade book as well, and then just come back and rinse and repeat that, and it'll put that score into your grade book for you. Any questions on that, Sherry?
No, I'm not seeing any.
Okay. Any other questions that we need to address here real quick?
Nothing I see unless they want to unmute themselves and ask you specifically.
Okay, I got one last thing to show, and then I'll kind of finish off. So also right here, guys, is links to Illuminate help docs that go over, you know, how to build your own tiles and things like that. So there's one here that walks you through step by step some of the ones that are already pre-built, and then in addition to that, I got to move this out of the way. Is this one on learn how to customize your tiles, and it'll walk you through how to create your own and things like that. And with, you know, all these little drop downs that get you to, you know, walks you step by step through how to create a tile. Super easy. Once you do 1 or 2, you'll become a pro, and this will really kind of clean things up for you quite a bit. Some additional things, I'm not going to go into this, but there are a ton of reports that work really well with Illuminate tests, and I don't know how much training you guys have gotten over the years with the reports, but all of these reports are inherent to any test that you give within Illuminate, and this presentation also walks through some of those for you guys. You can look through those at your convenience. And then up here at the top, just for online testing, I go through, and there's just step-by-step how to do online testing through the district and where kids go, and just a complete breakdown for you guys on how to, you know, set things up for online testing, so that you guys that were in that poll that didn't know necessarily how to do that maybe have a chance to give yourself some self-PD real quick on that. Any other questions?
So yeah, one came up. Any tricks or tips if you have students from more than one site, multiple high schools, for like CTE classes?
Gotcha. So for CTE, the challenge will be that if you don't have district access, you're only going to be able to look at one site at a time. All of your data will compile together under one test. So you can use the same test for all of your kids. But as far as seeing all that data together, it's always going to slice and dice it down to whatever school you're logged in on at the time. Like for me, since I'm at Miramani or as a Freedom, I've always constantly having to go back into the control panel and changing that. So basically to do that, let me minus this down here real quick. So if I'm up here, basically in my control panel, I can come in here, and where it says site, notice that on this demo site, I have Marzano High School and I have Grandin High School. This would be your 2 schools that you're associated with. You would just have to go in here and change that and hit save, and then you could see the data for that particular, you know, process. Sorry, I wish it was better than that. It's just hard with umbrella stuff and how much data they actually want, how much data you can actually see at once. So I'm just going to launch another couple polls here real quick just to gather some data. I meant to ask this one earlier before we did this, but I just wanted to see how many of you guys have actually ever used it. And if you didn't know what it was before today, you know. All right. So I'm going to end that one so you guys can see. So this is awesome for me that I got to share something new with you guys. And then I'm going to show you one more here just because this one kind of cracks me up a little bit. All right, so this is a multiple select one. I appreciate the honesty. Okay. So I see a lot of you guys. The biggest thing for monitoring the tool during assessments is I think it's a little bit easier in class versus, on a distance piece, just because you wouldn't be able to say, hey, Tony and Sherry are sitting right next to each other. And every time Tony hits C, Sherry has C on hers like 2 seconds later, and so it's a lot easier in the actual live classroom. But if you just kind of know some kids are kind of getting the same things, you could monitor it. But I do really think it's awesome for formative data. I mean, it is something that I use as often as I could up at Sierra High School when I was teaching my math students, just to kind of collect that data from them. Oh, here, I'll show you guys I'll share the results with you guys here real quick, just so you can see that. I love it. All right, last one, then answer any more questions here. And this is just the one for push tiles to grade book. I'm interested to know how many of you guys knew you could do that, or push assignment scores into Q. All right. So there's the results for that. And I'm guessing the notes that don't need it are probably kinder or first that maybe necessarily don't use the Q grade book. All right. So any other questions, Sherry?
No, but they did clarify that they're coming here for the stipend, as well as the learning. You just want to be very clear that.
No, I love it though, because I always like to have fun, and you got to have a little fun with it, right? Because I would have been that guy that would have done that as well. I would have been like, yeah, I'm just going to click this one for the fun of it. So I appreciate you guys having a little bit of good time.
It's a good laugh at the end of the day.
Exactly. I mean, if you guys made it here till 4:30, like you guys I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I mean,
you guys are rock stars.
Exactly. So, I mean, we got 4 minutes. So if there's any questions that you guys have, anything beyond this that you guys want to pick my brain on real quick, be more than happy to show it to you. Also, if you want to learn how to do the item bank assessment building, I know that's something that just hasn't really been a lot of PD on that. Just reach out to Sherry or myself. I don't think I have my email anywhere on there, but I'm more than happy to, when I have time, come out to school sites and show you guys how to do that once we're back into that, or set something up online for you guys on how to build online assessments. Live proctoring, which is my other session, will go into how to do it on the live proctoring side. Sorry, I have a puppy. He's playing with a squeaky toy. So I will be going over that, and that can also be using this as well. The only difference on that is that you do not have the ability to pause a student, or to, sorry, not pause, but to force kids to questions. There's no way to do that on the live, on the flexible assessment. And I meant to show you guys that real quick. So let me, Sherry, if there's any other questions, I'm going to pull that up here real quick.
No, everybody's just singing your praises.
Oh.
And saying how great it was. And I will, they're asking for the resources, so I'll post those back in there again.
Yeah. Let me just show this last thing here real quick, and then I'll just, it'll only take a second so you guys can kind of see what that looks like. And of course, there we go. All right, so let me get into this one here.
They're saying great information, things that they're learning lots of things they didn't know. They're looking forward to playing once the rosters show up live. So.
Yeah, for sure. I was trying to get that done, but yeah, it's one of those things that hasn't quite been finished. All right, so I'm jumping into my boy Sirius Black here. Yep, I'm a Harry Potter fan too. So if I come into this now, and let me go in here and continue test, you'll see now that this, and let me hit show test here. So this is what it kind of looks like, and let me stretch this out some so you guys could see what it'll look like. this is a PDF that I just created a test in the item bank, and you don't have to do this. You can use the item bank online rostering for this, but I wanted to make a test with a PDF so I could show you guys that this is what your PDF would look like. Page 1 is 4 math questions. Page 2, this is a evidence-based selected response style question. And so this is what a PDF would look like. And then over here on the right is the answer key that students would go in, and you just learn to match it up. So this is 4 choices, this is 4 choices, this is a multiple select, and it's got that. It's automatically check boxes. Question 3 is explicit constructed response. And so, you know, with that, I'm not sure if it'll work or not, if they got this working yet, if that shows up on that scenario. Let's see if it does. Let's go here. That was question number 3. Yep, there it is. So you can see that that's what the student typed in. And this is auto-correcting on the backdrop. So it won't show a color here, but it is auto-correcting. So you don't have to go back in and correct this one. And then finally you have on the right over here is the explicit constructed response. So I can just come over here and put that in. And then when you go to question number 4, you can see that that's going to show up there. So everything pretty much looks the same. The student end looks a little bit different, but you have one more item type that works here, which is the explicit constructed response. But then the thing that's a little bit different on the live proctoring is if I come out here, notice that there is no set for pacing mode here. And the reason why that is because you're working with a PDF and a set of questions. So even if you locked a kid to a certain question, they would still be able to see the whole test. So it's not conducive to it. So that's one thing to keep in mind as you're doing this. One of the things that I would just leverage is that pause button, because you still have the ability to pause. So I can still pause this, and now it's going to lock the kiddo out of the assessment to where you could go over the data. So that you still do have that ability, but then you lose the ability to push them to a specific question. But you still could monitor them from the dashboard and things like that and seeing what they're putting in. The explicit constructed response will not come in right there. Unfortunately, there's just not enough room for it. But you can just come in here and go kid by kid and kind of see all that. Okay. And now I'm 1 minute over. So, so sorry about that. That's all I got. Live proctoring in a nutshell with a few other components. Once again, let me throw the presentation up here. Oops. That's not it. Where did my presentation go? It's gone. So I don't know what I did with that. I must have exited out. So if Sherry, you'll just put in the chat one more time.
Yes, if you pop in the chat, you can click on your own link.
There we go. Hey, you're
there.
See, this is why I keep you around. See, the tech guy doesn't know how to use the tech, right? Hey.
Probably posted it like 85 times in there. So
there we go. So it's right here at the top,
here,
and there you guys go.
There you go, just for you. There you go.
You're awesome, Sherry.
Yeah, so I got to pop out. So yeah, just send me the recording and your attendance from today. That would be amazing. And thanks everybody for coming today. If you missed something today, we have more rolling your way. So have a good one.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for playing along.
Mm-hmm.